On May 15th, 2014, I saw a film that I waited more than half my life to see. Godzilla is a Japanese movie franchise that I grew up with. Among with other science fiction movies that I saw in my youth, the Godzilla movies helped me in my growth and understanding of not just cinematic conventions, but life itself. Yeah, that's a power film, believe it. The first movie, which was made in 1954, was a serious and dark film. It showed the psychological effects that Japan had and was experiencing at the time. The destruction caused by Godzilla's attack resembles a city in ruins, evoking images of Tokyo during the Second World War. Godzilla is a metaphor for nuclear weapons. It addressed the Pacific nuclear testing and atomic weaponry that was going on in the time. In fact, the inspiration for the film was the story of the Japanese fish boat, the Lucky Dragon 5, which was caught in a hydrogen bomb testing, which made several crew members get sick from the radiation and fallout. The film was a success, especially in Japan, and it made Godzilla an icon. He spawned a movie franchise with more movies than Nightmare on Elm Street / Friday the 13th or James Bond. Almost immediately, the thesis and tone of the films turned from contemporary societal issues to entertaining monster movies. Slowly they went from serious and grim.
Attention, people of Japan. At this moment, a nationwide prayer is being observed for the survivors of devastated Tokyo. The voices of our children are raised in a prayer for the courage to surmount the destruction of today and look forward with hope for peace and light.
Too lighthearted and cheesy.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles, you know.
In 1998, Toho, the studio that owns Godzilla, gave the American studio TriStar the chance to make the first Godzilla movie outside of Japan. American involvement in Godzilla films is rare, often playing the role of producer / financer or editor, editing the films to be foreign friendly. For example, adding scenes to the original 1954 film, which included new scenes with American actor Raymond Burr. Although the TriStar movie did excellent in the box office, nobody liked it. Critics loathed it, and fans hated it. It was criticized for its weak plot.
Ask him.
No.
I'm gonna ask him. No. I will.
Horrible acting.
That's a lot of fish.
And radical changes / design on Godzilla, often described as a horrible CGI iguana. The planned sequels to the movie never happened. You blew it, I thought. Now there will never be another American Godzilla film. In 2004, Toho decided to retire the Big G and announced a 10-year hiatus. I thought that I would never see a Godzilla movie in theaters since they only came out in Japan to cinemas and the Americans screwed up their only chance. But this all changed in 2010 when Toho confirmed that Legendary Pictures had acquired the rights to Godzilla and had a 2014 release date in mind. Gareth Edwards, director of the 2010 movie Monsters, was announced as the director and concept art was released. I was excited. I counted down the days until it was in theaters. When the day came to see it in cinemas, I went to the earliest premiere. Did the film live up to my expectations? Was it a good movie? As a fan, was it a good movie? Well, yes and no for a variety of reasons. The movie is set in modern contemporary times, but starts in 1999, where Juliette Binoche and Bryan Cranston are working in a nuclear power plant. An earthquake happens and Juliette dies. Several years later, their son, Ford Brady, played by Aaron Johnson, fresh out of army training, gets a call that his father has been arrested. Driven by the loss of his wife, he searches for answers on what happened that day, but Ford thinks of him that he is a lunatic.
I'm not crazy.
Ford gets convinced by his dad to help him find answers. Eventually, they find out that a monster named Muto caused this and that it is awakening from its slumber to make a Godzilla movie. Cities are destroyed and Godzilla gets a chance to fight the Muto while the humans try to kill them and get squashed at the same time. First, let's analyze the good, then the bad, then the ugly. I like the design of Godzilla. The original Godzilla is a man in a suit, and in the 1998 American movie, it was on CGI. This film has a non-CGI Godzilla, but it resembles a man in a suit too. This does make the big G look a little chubby at times, but it is acceptable. The cast of humans are more than acceptable though. We get not just famous actors, but great actors. The filmmakers put care into the actor's role. For example, Bryan Cranston's character works in Japan, but doesn't know how to speak Japanese. He knows work phrases though, and he speaks them very well even though there's an American accent when he speaks. This doesn't just show respect to the original material, but adds realism to the movie, as it makes note that Cranston's character is a brilliant scientist that works in Japan but is still a normal human being that is trying to learn a new language like us. The special effects are jaw-dropping. The destruction is flawlessly portrayed with care. We see the buildings fall and cause debris and panic. People get killed and scared from not just the monsters but the hazards that they cause. Like the 1954 original, this takes Godzilla serious. Like the 1954 original, death and destruction is common when he arrives, but unlike the 1954 Godzilla, this one is just a giant dinosaur. He isn't a stand-in for anything. Don't give me the weak-ass explanation that Godzilla represents the force of nature or global warming / climate change, because that was never hinted at. In fact, Godzilla doesn't really appear in the film until almost the ending to have a final showdown with the Mutos. We hear mentions of him and see his scales when he is swimming towards the action, but we don't see much of him. Actually, we don't see much monster on monster brawl either. We get the monsters stomping their way to the battlefield and taunting each other, but after the first punch is thrown, the film cuts away. Even the last fight gives us only the conclusion of it. The Mutos take most of the screen time as the humans try to kill them. At times, I forgot I was watching a Godzilla movie and thought that I was watching a completely different monster flick. The Mutos even outshine the human actors. Ford Brady is supposed to be our everyday man that we can relate to, but we can't. He is a highly trained army guy who just happens to be everywhere the monsters are when they are on screen and attacking humanity. He is also a great actor. When he is at the train station, he gives a wonderful performance as a poker-faced, emotionless person. When he sees death and destruction around him or is thrown from a helicopter and is injured, he gives the same performance. Other actors aren't as bad as Aaron Johnson, but are still wasted. Elizabeth Olsen literally does nothing. Ken Watanabe just stares at Godzilla. Watanabe's expression is just opening his jaw in amazement, even though he is the main scientist studying Godzilla. Actually, lots of characters do this in this film, which reminds me a lot of the Spielberg face. The Spielberg face is something that Hollywood director Steven Spielberg does in his movies. When a character or characters sees something and they are struck by it, they would have their eyes focused on it with amazement on their face, with literally a jaw drop, a common staple of Spielberg films. This film is full of Spielberg tropes and trademarks actually. For example, there are the use of powerful lights and darkness, the suspense of not showing the creature a la Jaws, the little kids in the movie, the strained father-son relationship. There's even a over-exaggerated explosion like in War of the Worlds. Ford Brady's name is a combination of Harrison Ford, who played Indiana Jones in Spielberg-directed movies, and Jaws protagonist, Police Chief Martin Brody. Spielberg gets a lot of hate for making films that are sentimental and creating the modern-day summer blockbuster, but he is my all-time favorite director. So I must have loved this movie then. After all, it's my favorite genre and my favorite directors being evoked here. Love is a strong word. I enjoyed the film and I can't wait for the Blu-ray DVD combo pack to come out to watch again, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's one of the best. Out of the franchise, I'll place it around 12th place. The film was worth the wait though. Even though it lacks certain things like the usage of the human characters showing epic monster fights, showing the title character, it does succeed as something else. Not as a Godzilla movie, but a monster movie. Maybe Godzilla's role has changed today. Today we don't fear it, but we fear what will happen to us. In today's post 9/11 world, we don't fear the agents, we fear the action. Or maybe I'm being too meta and overanalyzing this. After all, the movie did make over $93.2 million in the box office in its first week. It was better than last year's disappointing monster movie Pacific Rim. Even though some people didn't like it, the general consensus is that it is a good movie. Few fans are fighting each other over it, but most fans enjoyed it. So if you want to see modern monster flick that takes itself serious, but still enjoyable for the family, then go ahead and watch this film. As for me, I give it 4 dancing Godzillas out of 5.